Hi, this is Dr. Jeannie Barra, your GCA host on GCA Studios, brought to you by GameChangeAgency.com. I'm also the CEO and founder of Fearless Women at Work, an executive coaching and career strategy company. And I am so excited today because this channel on GCA Studios is whole purpose is to bring the love of leadership to the audience, to you, and to share with you different perspectives from different thought leaders across industries and backgrounds, and to use those perspectives to help us grow as leaders and to help us rise to our leadership potential. And today is no different. My guest today is Dr. Taruni Lambert. Welcome, Taruni.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
My pleasure to have you. And Dr. Taruni and I are going to be having a courageous conversation about why thinking like a leader matters. And we're going to ask you 3 questions that we're going to discuss throughout our time together today. The questions are you a leader? What do you stand for? And what can you do about it? Before we dive into those 3 questions, let's talk about who Dr. Taruni is and why she's here with me today. Dr. Taruni is an associate professor of mathematics at the University of Nevada. She has held many leadership roles and was the principal investigator of the Nevada Mathematics Project. She has authored several books, and 2 of her most current books are Conducting Productive Meetings, How to Generate and Communicate Ideas for Innovation, and the second one is Leaders Who Lead Successfully, Organizing for Innovation. So Taruni, I always like to start with my favorite question, which is about what inspires and motivates you. In other words, what is your why?
My why is actually to make a difference in the lives of children. About 20 years ago, I kind of went through some tough times and I said, what is my purpose? What am I here for? And the insight came to me. I was an elementary teacher then, and I loved the kids that I worked with, and they inspired me to become a leader that I am now to make a difference.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I always find it so interesting to see how we got from where we were born to where we are today. And even you said you were an elementary teacher and now you are an associate professor of mathematics.
Yes.
And so that is even an interesting journey, right? How you went from what you used to do to what you're doing now.
I just wanted to learn more about how to help the kids I was teaching. So I kept going to school, had no intention of getting a doctorate. And then I found myself in a place where I had to make a choice. I had to leave the classroom. And I was not going to leave it without being able to touch more lives of kids.
That's beautiful.
So that, I always keep that in my heart because I think that was the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing.
And so how does it relate to what you're doing with kids right now, just so that the audience...
My area is really mathematics education. So I study how children learn, and I study how to support teachers in the classrooms. Beautiful. And my larger purpose is I realize that you can't help teachers in the classroom if you don't know how to work within the education system. So if you really want to touch kids' lives, you need that leadership skills to be able to work with districts and teachers and others and harness resources and conduct research so that you can make a difference.
And I always also find it fascinating how you were handpicked to be in the environment first, to then become the leader in this position that you're in, to then have the impact that you are here to have. Isn't that a beautiful journey when you really look back, right?
When you look back, I never set out to be a leader. Matter of fact, that was not what I was studying. Or a lot of us don't think about ourselves as leaders. And I think that to forward the mission of helping kids, you need those leadership skills to gather resources, to motivate people, to actually make an impact. You need to be able to work with others. And so
So that's a great segue, right? Let's talk about our first question. What are you a leader, right? That's the question that we
I
wanted to
think this is
first.
something that is a really important question. Many of us don't think of ourselves as leaders. Many of us don't. Um, you think that a leader is somebody with a title. You might be somebody in the classroom teaching. You might be, no matter what you do, in order to make a difference, in order to accomplish something, you need to be able to kind of motivate others and be able to do something. It's very hard to accomplish things all by yourself.
So what do you think it's important for people to ask themselves, even if they're not in a leadership role per se, to ask themselves, am I a leader?
To ask themselves, am I a leader, starts with, what am I trying to accomplish? What is my purpose? What is my goals? Am I trying to get something done? So you're not doing being a leader for the sake of being a leader. Then you're trying to think, okay, to accomplish that task, what do I need to do? Who do I need to contact? Where do I get the resources? Who do I need to talk to? Those are things that you need to ask yourselves, which require leadership skills.
So the question, are you a leader? It's going to require you to be self-aware.
Yes,
So what I'm hearing, Taruni, is that there is self-leadership also, right? Which is
yes,
we are all leaders when you
yes,
look at it from the perspective of we are all leading ourselves. And we know in
yes,
some cases, unfortunately, not as well as in others.
yes. I think that first question coming into asking yourself, what am I trying to accomplish and how do I do it, um, requires thinking of yourself as somebody who can make a difference, who is empowering yourself to take that action or that step. If you don't empower yourself, you really are kind of waiting for other people to make things happen.
And that's what I was going to say, that if you don't take the leadership role and take
Yes,
the initiative, it's
yes,
because you are assuming potentially that someone else's job is to take the leadership role and to take
yes.
initiative.
So anything that you're trying to accomplish, you need to work with others. And one of the things I think is to ask yourself, what am I trying to accomplish? Who am I? And what do I need to do to get them there?
Okay. And that is when you decide, I am a leader in my own right.
And in my own story, when I left the classroom, I got a job at Vanderbilt University, and I moved to Nashville and found myself working on a project where I had to work with two different school districts. And one of the things I realized was very quickly that communicating with others, getting people to show up at meetings, working with graduate students, all that required a kind of more of a role of a project manager as a postdoc. I just needed those skills I had not acquired in graduate school. So I started reading up and figuring out, how do I do this? How do I keep all the balls in the air? How do I communicate with people? That's when my journey started, really thinking about what is leadership.
And this
But
is,
yeah,
go ahead. I think this is also very pertinent to emerging leaders,
yes,
right? People who have been working as individual contributors and all of a sudden got promoted to a leadership role. And now they feel like, oh my gosh, there's so much that has to happen that I didn't even know I needed to know. But you kind of just learn as you go in many cases.
and a lot of times we are not trained. Like, for example, my discipline is mathematics education. I was a teacher. In our programs, we don't study the leadership skills. We don't, that's not part of our requirement. So it becomes even more important. It doesn't matter what you do, to start learning those skills, starting reading in different disciplines. That is a really important part of becoming a leader, is being a learner. And that's
So
a
Taruni,
important.
what do you think makes a leader in terms, like how would you define a leader?
So a leader, I would see, is somebody who can gather, who has an idea, and who can gather people together from different backgrounds. And I think a good leader in the books I wrote knows how to draw from expertise of different people and then be able to accomplish something together. And the books I wrote were particularly looking at how do you lead a team to innovate? How do you do something better, cheaper, faster? Because I think just leading is not good enough, but how do you lead or take people's ideas and do it better, improve something? And that's almost a different question than being a manager who just keeps things running.
Correct. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to draw the distinction, right? That we're not managing a task per se. We are managing organizational change in many cases as leaders within the organization. And when it comes to your personal leadership, you're constantly being a self-leader. You're directing your life in the direction that you want it to go.
And I think you're an expert on, really, I love your book, Fearless Women at Work, and really, I think maybe tell a little bit more about how you view leadership and what that means.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this whole channel is devoted to leadership because I am passionate about leaders and helping leaders rise to their leadership potential, as I mentioned earlier. And the reason why that's important to me, Taruni, is that I believe leaders set the tone for the workplace. If you have great leaders who are leading from a place of feeling centered and connected to themselves and to the people that they're leading, they're going to be unstoppable. The organization has no other way to go but up, because employees will be engaged when you show up as a great leader. Your innovation, creativity goes up. People feel valued. They feel their contributions matter. And if you are in that environment, how can you not innovate? How can you not provide the best customer service? How can you not, engage clients, employees, everyone? So that's why I believe leadership and taking leadership seriously is so important for us. And in our own lives, my goodness, if we can be good self-leaders, that is, to me, a waste of what we were put on this earth to do.
Yes.
It is squandering and wasting this gift that we each uniquely bring. And I always talk about how as leaders and as people, we have such a beautiful combination of our marketable skills, our why, and our superpowers, our qualities.
Yes.
And no one, you, me, nobody has the exact same combination of those three things. And so being able to pull that out of someone and expose that and see them the way that they may not even see themselves and then mirror that back to them, it's priceless. So if you can do that as a leader, that's where the gold is.
And I think you hit on something which I think is very dear and near to my heart, is that passion. If a leader is passionate about something, it's contagious.
Exactly.
An example of somebody who I interviewed, Dr. Jabali, gave an example, a very simple, I was interviewing him and he was shared with me sorry, my phone came here.
That's okay.
He was sharing with me the story of planting grapes in his yard. And he said he was planting grapes. He went to the nursery and said, I want some plants. And the guy said, well, it's going to take you 5 years before you actually see any fruit. And then he said, well, he had to come back home and convince his family to plant the garden and to visualize what it might look like. Sorry.
It's okay.
So to kind of visualize what it might look like. So I think that's part of being a leadership, is being able to kind of have your team visualize that potential of what you could be.
That's right.
From now.
And what you can create together. So that leads us into the next question. What do you stand for, right? Because that ties into your passion.
Absolutely.
So what do you mean by that question? What do you stand for? What do you want to share with the audience?
One of the things that's really important is to think about is your core values. who are you and what do you stand for? Because that's really important to figure out your strength. For me personally, it was my core values was to make a difference in lives of children. So when obstacles came my way in my work, such as saying, this work doesn't count, or you're not going to get credit for it, or we're not going to recognize you and support you, I just had to make the decision, do I stop what my mission is, just so I can get a promotion or a title or be getting the recognition within my
Field,
environment,
yeah.
or do I keep pursuing things that are the larger mission of the organization and that being true to myself? So many times as leaders, we're going to encounter decisions as to that are really difficult, that obstacles are going to be in your way. And asking who you are and what you stand for will give you the strength to overcome challenges or barriers put your way.
So I love what you're saying, and I also I want to bring a different perspective, which is going to get to the same destination, which is when I'm working with clients and they come to me, we're having a coaching session, and they have a decision to make. Do I go with this? Do I go with that? I'm not sure. I always bring them back to what's important to you, right? And that goes back to what are your values? What's important? What matters to you? When you anchor in that, there is a very clear answer.
Yes.
Because the answer will always be what is most aligned with what's important to you. In your case, right, it was to make an impact.
Absolutely. Right? And then you decide, to make an impact, maybe I might spend time out in the community, which sometimes, it's competing demands of your time.
Correct.
But to me, that being that community and knowing what are the needs, what are kids' lives like, what are teachers' lives like, is a really important part for me personally. So I think a lot of times you just have to make decisions which aligns with you. I'm saying align with your organization, otherwise you're not, that's not the right fit.
Right.
But at the same time, as you're working on projects and you have people kind of put barriers, then you just have to figure out how do you overcome them.
Right. And so, I guess the takeaway is always going back to what's important to me, what's important to my team, what's important to the organization as a whole, and using that as your GPS to make the rest of the decisions.
One of the things that I learned through my interviews as I was writing the books is how important to select the right members to your teams, people with the right attitude. This theme came over and over again. Mm-hmm. Selecting people who have the same kinds of passions. So when you're putting a team together, selecting team members carefully is important. Otherwise, you're going to be spinning your wheels or having people undermine what you're doing.
And I love that you brought that up, because if you're not clear on what your team stands for and what's important to the team, then you can ask the right questions as you are looking to recruit your team.
Absolutely.
So I love that you brought that up.
And I know that you worked a lot in teams and had some management positions yourself. So what are some lessons you learned from that journey?
Look, from knowing what, in terms of this question, what do you stand for? What I've always found is I did the best when I was in a team where my leader was very clear on what was important to us, and we had a very clear direction of what we were supposed to do within the organization. And we also knew where we stood in the context of the vision of the organization and what role we play. Then we felt that we had significance, right? One of the human needs. Yes. We felt we were contributing to the big cause. So that's when I did the best. As a leader, I then passed that on to my team, which is always to connect them to the vision, the big vision. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I was in project management, in technology, financial services, so then it was always about bringing it back. So this is the big vision. This is what we're trying to accomplish from the big picture perspective. And now to do that, these are the projects that we're going to take on. And so there's a meaning, there's a purpose, And then there's accountability, right? Giving people the responsibility and accountability. But clear expectations to me was always one of the winning pieces of the equation. Having clear expectations, what you want from them, all the way from budget, timeframes, deliverables, to the way that they were going to show up, right? And the way that they were going to deliver those services.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's how it all comes together. So let's move on to the next and last question, which is what can you do about it once you know, once you realize you're a leader, right? And then you know what you stand for, your purpose, your meaning. Let's talk about what can people do about it once they figure it out.
I think take action. I think a lot of people can spend time just coming up with ideas, but taking actions. And I think that's why in my Conducting Productive Meetings books that I gave some specific strategies of how do you take people from the idea stage, refine those ideas, and then keep things moving along so you come up with an innovative solution.
So can you give us just a taste of
Yes.
some of the things that you share on your book on how to take
Yes.
action, how to take something from an idea to something tangible?
So, for example, this is a strategy like anybody could use. It's very simple in a meeting. A lot of times, have you ever sat in a meeting where people are just going through the PowerPoint and nobody's really paying attention? But
Yeah, eyes are rolling in the back of their
yes.
their heads. Yes, people are daydreaming what they're going to do when they leave.
Yeah, they're checking their phones, whatever. This is about how do you run a meeting that capitalizes on people's brilliant ideas. It doesn't matter who is on your team. It doesn't matter the rank. And that was another thing that really came across in my interviews and your research, that if you only listen to the people with the ranks, you're kind of limiting what you can accomplish. So to get everybody's voices heard, you need to create a comfortable environment. So the first thing is to listen to people's ideas, setting that expectation. We're going to listen to people's ideas and somehow record those perspectives and making sure that each other understand each other's thinking so we're on the same page. So the first strategy, listen to, share and listen to the ideas. The second one is analyze each other's ideas. So so that you're doing more than listening, but you're analyzing and you're comparing. That's really powerful. You could say, well, this so-and-so's idea is similar to what they were thinking about it. And so you're just kind of critiquing each other's ideas.
Constructively, yes.
Constructively, yes. And you want to set the norms on how to do that. And then the third level is going, okay, so now that we can brainstorm, usually it's around a problem or issue, is what are some solutions we have come up as a group? So now you record that, you make that explicit. That's when you come up with the best ideas, and then you come up with deliverables or coming up with some action items to act on. So then you've taken that knowledge from the idea stage to kind of refining to some kind of tangible thing that you can use to kind of move the project forward.
And can we touch on some of the things that could throw a wrench in that whole 3-step strategy of sharing the ideas, hearing ideas, then doing constructive criticism of the ideas, and finally coming up with action steps? What are some of the kinks that we encounter?
On that is the relationships between people. If it's very hierarchical and people are afraid to speak their mind, then it's just not going to work. And so one of the things in my books that I did point out is the value of the informal and the formal relationship. So a very powerful thing several people I interviewed talked about after they worked on a project, just going out for a cup of coffee. So like building this trust and relationships, having fun together, it's really important. Even laughter. When you are in the middle of a heated debate, if you can laugh in that process, then it kind of releases the tension and you can kind of keep moving forward. But if you're letting egos get in the way, um, it's like my way or the highway kind of interactions is not very productive.
Right. So I'm hearing communication is extremely important in
Yes,
general, right? Being open-minded
yes,
is really
and
important in order to allow other ideas to chime in.
absolutely,
And I'm also hearing building what I call 360-degree relationships, right?
absolutely.
Which is relationships with people at your level, people who report into you, and people who you report into.
Relationships are really powerful and matter. And it's even the dynamics of the group is even more powerful is when you're all connected with some kind of personal passion
Right.
to do what you're trying to accomplish. Like, for example, the Nevada Math Project that I ran involved every single school district in the state, 6 institutes of higher education, and people from districts and regional training centers, which people came from very, very different backgrounds. And it would have been so easy to unravel. That was one of the reasons I ended up writing the leadership books, because I could look very, very bad for a lot of people. And to kind of figuring out nobody has time. That's
Right. Time is, everybody's in a crunch.
yeah, in a crunch. So how do you take people's ideas when it's relevant and timely? That's another part of it to think about.
That's beautiful. And that was one of the questions that I had in my mind, which is another kink could be time. People
Yes.
are in such a rush to make a decision and to move on that they
Yes.
may not want to hear everybody's idea, right? They don't
Yes.
have time for that. So how do we create the space and the safety so people
Yes.
of all ranks that are relevant? I understand that we can't have everybody in the room, just people who are,
Yes.
the people that are relevant to that topic that we need to listen to, and then
Absolutely.
creating that container where people can freely express, and then know that it's going to take a certain amount of time, that it's not going to be done overnight. And sometimes some projects need to be done much faster than others. We know that.
Absolutely. And to be efficient in running any kind of projects, anything you're trying to accomplish, is deciding what information is needed at what moment. So that's one way to be efficiency with time. If you don't need a whole bunch of other stuff, don't waste your time
Don't bring it up.
in talking about. So having very focused goals when you conduct a meeting as to what you're trying to accomplish, and having people prepared ahead of time so that when they come in, they can start contributing.
Let's go. Correct.
Let's go.
Guns a-blazing.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, Taruni, we've been speaking for almost 25 minutes.
Wow.
I know.
Time went by quickly.
It flies by, and I want to thank you for sharing your insights and your perspective coming from the education world, and for giving us a few of the tidbits that you share in your book, which again, your books are Conducting Productive Meetings, How to Generate and Communicate Ideas for Innovation, and Leaders Who Lead Successfully, Organizing for Innovation. So I know you have a gift, which is 10 things a leader needs to know to lead a team to successfully innovate. So this is a gift that Taruni has for you. We're going to give you her website so you can visit her website and pick it up. It's at optimizedlearning.net, and you will click on the Lead Projects menu link to get your gift from Taruni. Taruni, thank you so much. People will be able to find you how?
Through optimizedlearning.net, it has my contact information.
Beautiful. And you can find me always at fearlesswomenatwork.com. Taruni, thank you so much for joining us today. And you can also pick up my book, fearlesswomenatwork.com, at any bookstore, Amazon, or any local bookstore. Taruni, we'll be in touch soon. And again, thank you.
Well, thank you for the honor, and it was nice chatting with you.
We'll chat again soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.